Welcome and thank you for clicking on my video. Today we're actually going to go over some technical analysis for the SPY Qs, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, NVIDIA, AMD, and Meta going forward. But first I just wanted to talk to you real quick about this signal right here, which is the signal that we actually used in order to find the bottom in October. So if you're following this account in October, we actually called this as a bottom. We used Apple actually here, Apple showing us that they had the triple divergence, looking like momentum dying out, get some good news, boom, we go skyrocketing to the upside. So this is overall what told us, hey, now we might go touch an all-time high. And then we have to look at what signal we're seeing here, and looks like Microsoft showing a very similar signal, just in a different direction. Microsoft actually confirming that signal as of today, right at the 20. We can see we have these highs up in here, and we see that divergence across the way down here, and we see that on the RSI and the nearest divergence right down here. So as we look at this going forward, that is something to keep in mind. Microsoft's showing you a very similar signal to what we use to find the bottom. Will Microsoft be telling us that this is the top? But as we look at the SPY, there's not going to be updated daily ranges for today, right? The stock market is closed tomorrow. We get big news, that being PCE and Jerome Powell talking. I believe he talks twice, so we are going to go live tomorrow sometime, like about an hour after the regular market would open. And then we'll talk about what's happening with Jerome Powell there, talk about PCE and do all that type of stuff. But as of right now, we noticed that the SPY was able to complete the cup. We wanted a sufficient handle here. I don't think this was sufficient enough. When we started to, I believe I even posted, as we trickle higher, you know, we talked about this live actually. So when we talked about this live, I said if this just trickles higher without consolidating, I actually said it would be good news for us to consolidate down into this area here. That would tell me, hey, there's a good chance that we're going to see this go up. But the reason that I'm skeptical now is because you do have a 30-minute divergence here. So you actually have a 30-minute divergence. This is what we were posting on Patreon. This is the 30-minute, but you also have a 2-hour, which we post on Patreon. We said, yes, the 2-hour is curling up. Looks like it can go higher, but if that just rolls over, we could be seeing some kind of double top right here. So I want to pay attention to this. We're seeing selling into the end of the day. Maybe some people that just don't want to play around with this stuff, but this is what we were posting to Patreon. You can go join the Patreon down in the description, but this double topping up here, this divergence at this point, what we're paying attention to, it's pretty steep on the MACD, pretty good here on the RSI as well. So if this starts to curl over and go negative, maybe with some bad news tomorrow, this is telling you the momentum has died out. We might be seeing downward pressure. Now, that's not to say anything. We don't know that PCE data. We don't know what Jerome Powell is going to say. We can just bank on him being vague and overall bullish, you know, saying very bullish things. Every time Jerome Powell talks, we end up going higher. Even if we consolidate while he's talking, usually we end up going higher. So you have to pay attention to that. But the signals right now telling you there is weakness going into tomorrow. Could that be some kind of sudden drop? We'll have to find out, because if this wants to prove itself, if it wants to cross over, break through this low, start that series of negative, you know, a negative trend here, we can see the daily really start to break down. This thing just creating tons and tons of divergences down here on the MACD and the RSI at the same time. We're just hanging out with a ton of divergences, but we've been able to ride this thing up. So what I would really pay attention to is if we start to lose the 20 next week, that could be a good sign that we're actually seeing a, I would overall say, a correction, or maybe the beginning of some kind of bear market, some kind of crash in the form of a bear market. But we see all the divergences across the way here, right? If I spread it out and make it look a little better for you, you're going to see those. We see all the divergences across the way, that downward pressure as the price goes up and up and up. And that is not a good thing. And we weren't able to cross up as of today, getting a little bit of a topping tail. We'll have to see if that 2-hour divergence is going to come from anything. If that just meant, hey, maybe I could hedge a little bit here, that might have been the right move. The Q showing a similar thing, showing that downward pressure, showing that downward move, even more down on the Qs for these divergences down here. So you're seeing it more at that downward angle, getting you closer to that negative territory. To be worrisome about the Qs makes sense, because the SPY actually was able to make a new high up in here, just barely making a new high, kind of testing this level. The Qs aren't confirming that. They're closing below their 5-day moving average. So you want to pay attention to that going forward. The thing I wanted to point out was the 30-minute here. Now, for the 30-minute to head higher, we said what would have to happen? Well, we'd need to see some of that strength, and we very well could still be flagging in this area. We could see that strength. But what I wanted to do is come up to this area of about 447.50. If it can come up to that area, 447.50, we see that right shoulder, you can see how it would look pretty good going up from here, but that's not happening as of right now. So there's a bullish case if that starts to happen. You do have some flagging that could very well play out, but as of right now, what you see here is you got a big cup. now you have formed some kind of bigger handle here if we wanted to actually head down from here. So all of this in here could just be a handle to actually head lower. So that is something to pay attention to. The Q's not confirming this move higher. You'll see the 2 hour here rejecting the cross as of right now, and it's right by negative territory. So if we start to go negative, that's why we want to be careful. We don't want to ruin our weekend by taking any trades at the end of today. We've mentioned that many, many times. We can see this go negative. All these calls could get wiped out as far as next week goes. Apple, this was my trade here, and I saw this come up. I thought it had the chance for another push. I really thought we were going to see some positivity. That didn't end up happening. It dropped off, so I get out of my position just in case this curls over on this MACD because it's in negative territory. That means we can cut through this low pretty quick. So as of right now, we're seeing that drop off. Looks like we're flagging at this point. So I just wanted to show like a 15-minute and show the curving of the MACD. Okay, curving up towards the center line, we can start to see a downward move. So we can start to see a downward move here because we're right at that center line. And if we cross over, we can take out this low and head a little bit lower. So what I'm paying attention to here is if we come down to this point, maybe we actually make a head and shoulders on the way down. That would be the bearish scenario. The bullish scenario is we're going to get some good news tomorrow going into next week. And this is all just a liquidity grab to actually head higher. Not a good bar at the end of the day, but that could be people just trying to get out of their positions before that big data drop, before Jerome Powell talks. We'll have to pay attention to that, but you do have one way up, right, with the head and shoulders to the upside, and we do have one way down, which would be a head and shoulders forming to the downside. So the fact that the market is closed tomorrow for PCE and for Jerome Powell talking, I think he talks twice, that is very, very interesting and kind of scary as a trader if you're holding anything over the weekend. Tesla, funny enough, this is still selling off in a decent pattern here. It's still selling off in this overall bigger flag on the 15-minute. Now, something I did notice at the end of the day, didn't post this to Patreon because it's too risky for me to give you guys a setup like this before a big event. Like tomorrow, I don't want to bait anyone into being like, oh, this has to go up now because of a 15-minute divergence. 15-minute divergence can be weak. This is not even curled up just yet, not going positive. But if this wanted to head higher, well, we would probably use this 180.92 as our neckline. See that left, go grab some down in here, and then see that break to the upside, get that retest, which actually gives you some kind of right shoulder. So there is a way for Tesla to head higher. There really, really is. But I just want to pay attention to a 2 hour because if this selling escalates, we can see this start to break down. So maybe something I want to do if I'm, have calls or anything like that in the market, maybe I just want to make myself a little trend along these lows and say, hey, if it starts to break through these levels, it's going to most likely test lower ones. Maybe it actually is going to form something like this. Maybe it drops down to here, we get some kind of bounce, and then we see that head and shoulders on the way down. So there are multiple options at this area. You have to be open to both sides, but as of right now, stocks, at least the SPY, looking pretty weak. Tesla and Apple both actually have been weak for quite some time. And then we're seeing things like Amazon. Amazon actually showing you a little 2 hour divergence at the end of today, right? Not even able to get into overbought territory, but you see the flatness of the MACD, or the flatness of the RSI, and the curving down of the MACD here, giving you that divergence in the nearest price action. But also, if you zoom out, you have divergences all along this, okay? So we've been trading this up all this time. You see that we're getting some volatile moves down at this point. Eventually, we are going to see this actually create that full negative trend, not flagging or anything like that. We're just going to see this thing start to roll over. And if this 2 hour does roll over, well, now you have that opportunity for some rejection here. So this would be a sign of positivity for Amazon going into next week. If we get this crossing early on in the week, we could pay attention to our top side of the weekly expected move, which we're going to give out on Sunday. So come back, make sure you're subscribed so you get those weekly expected moves for the SPY and the Qs. And if you want them for each individual stock, the Patreon's down below. But if this curls up, we can see another positive move, but it might not have that much gas in it. I really don't think that. All these 2 hour divergences have built up a ton of liquidity in here. We're starting to see price get tight at this point, right? We're getting tighter and tighter. A big move is coming, and maybe that actually happens while no one, or at least less people, are able to react, and we actually see that fall to the downside. Breaking down from here, if we reject, we would be very close to that center line starting some kind of negative trend. And because we have, some good structure in here, we could hit those bumps along the way, right? We said by the end of March, we might be in a bear market, and it very well be the first week of April, we might be there. Okay, so pay attention if this does break down. We said the bullish side, now here's the bearish one. What if we do this, create a little head and shoulders, then here we break down a little bit further, and then we create a bigger head and shoulders. So I'm looking at this base kind of down in here. looking at this level, seeing if it's able to break down to here, and then we get another head and shoulders to head down. Amazon telling you that the momentum to the upside is slightly dying out, and so if we get some bad news, we can see at least a correction, if not some kind of stock market crash. But are we going to get that crash? Well, we haven't seen NVIDIA break down through the 20-day moving average yet. This is a good signal that we're going to see at least a test of the 50 because the 20 has held us up so many times. I mean, not really so many times on NVIDIA, but a lot of times in the overall market, NVIDIA's really relied on it only 2 or 3 times, but every single time it's touched it, we've seen a boom back up. Okay, so the fact that now we're going to maybe have the potential to break below it as we look at shorter time frames, we have to pay attention to any kind of downside here. If it starts to break below, this point of 840 will be very, very important. You see this little base down in here. If we start to drop down, maybe we actually go towards that 50 when all is said and done. So we have to pay attention to that. But as we go into the shorter time frames, I'm just going to go into a 30-minute. I want to show you guys how much this is curving. It's really just flagging out at this point. Now, this could just be repositioning, right? We could be seeing some weird price action due to repositioning at the end of the quarter here. But as of right now, based on what the charts are telling you, this does not look very strong, right? This doesn't look very strong. It's curving up towards that center line. What do we say? It curves up towards that center line, then it drops again. Guess what? We're going to go to lower levels. We're going to break through this low. So if we start to lose this point here, really pay attention to that 840, 850 level right in between there, because that's going to be very, very important soon. And we'll look at those weekly ranges, which we give out on Patreon for NVIDIA if we see some bad news tomorrow. Make sure to join us live tomorrow. Make sure to show up, like the video. You guys are always fantastic. And we'll click around, look at some stuff while Jerome Powell is talking. AMD, this one is going to explode. I don't know which way it's going to go, but right now you'd say, hey, it's in positive territory. Maybe that's the only thing going for it, is it's in positive territory, so you have to assume positivity right now. But so much liquidity has been, in this area for so long that now it's kind of bottled up, and it's kind of like shaking a can. Eventually, when you open it, it's going to explode. Okay, so when it breaks to the upside, breaks to the downside, really closes above this level, closes below this level right here, we can see a big move coming, and the 2-hour is going to be what I'm paying attention to. Look at it creeping up towards the center line. What do we like to do when we see another drop down? Well, we creep up towards that center line. So if this is going to be positive news, you're going to see this 2-hour just roll up into positive territory, no problem. But if this actually wants to break down, we could be seeing this roll over into negative territory, which means we're probably going to take out this low, which means we'll take out this one, head a little bit lower. Where could we head to? Well, we could head to this gap fill down at 164.47 level, right around there. So that's what I'm going to be paying attention to the downside of my weekly expected moves if tomorrow is bad news. But we're going to watch that live just to make sure, because we don't know exactly what they are going to say. But we have to say this does not look good for AMD. It's bottling up in this area, so a big move's coming. If we're patient, maybe we can catch one up, or maybe even see this MACD roll down and catch that move down. Now, Meta on the 2-hour looking weaker and weaker, getting further into negative territory. Once it gets down to these levels, right? Once it gets down to these levels on the MACD, the probabilities start to add up that you might just get some kind of lower high again, and we might very well already be starting some kind of negative trend. Okay, so we want to take out this level right in here to really solidify that, say, hey, we're breaking down, we break up, retest that level, and then we see it break down again. That would confirm that negative trend going forward. I just wanted to bring up the daily as well to show Meta really selling off, losing that 20-day moving average, about to get the cross of this 5-day against the 20 here. So if I pull up the Bollinger Bands, a lot of the time when you do see that cross down, you see how tight they are right now. We like to test bottom Bollinger. Well, you're probably going to test bottom Bollinger if this crosses over, right? You're probably going to actually spread it out. So we could see a big drop from Meta with these with this crossover on the MACD. We weren't able to see any kind of positivity here, which is what we were looking for. But you do have those 2-hour divergences up here, which told you this might be a double top, and you're seeing a very similar signal on the SPY. So that is something to pay attention to. Microsoft, this is a great looking trade. It really is. You see the triple divergence up here on the MACD. You don't have triple divergence on the RSI, but you do have that divergence in the nearest price action, and you do have that divergence over here as well. So multiple point on the RSI, triple divergence on the MACD. The coolest part about this, if you took the course, you're going to know everything that we're talking about right now, which the course is only $100 for 2 more days. Okay, you have 2 days to get that course for $100 before the price increases. So take it over the weekend and then come back, get those weekly ranges on Sunday, and Monday you are ready to trade this with a bear market strategy and a greater understanding of these indicators of support and resistance and everything like that. So what we're paying attention to in the near price action though was Microsoft gave us a 2-hour divergence. This is a trade that we were looking at live, and we said, hey, Microsoft giving you that 2-hour divergence likes to roll over the daily. The daily has officially rolled over now. So this is proving to be true. We even gave you the weekly ranges for Microsoft. We gave you this on YouTube for free here, and you're just seeing 419.56. What do? We came to that level, and we just hovered right at that level all the way until the closing bell for a couple of days, right? This actually happened on Wednesday, and now we're ending the day in the same place. So the problem with this right here is if I now go into a 30-minute, I'm going to get a new range next week. We're going to add this to Patreon once we hit 100 members, but you can see we're getting closer to that center line. So when you start to consolidate at lower levels by that weekly expected move, a lot of the time that will continue. You're going to see this 30-minute roll over, and we could see that negative trend start to really tell you with another push down. Really, it's already told you. It went negative, curved over, rolled down again, negative trend as of right now, right? Series of lower lows, series of lower highs, and now we might be getting another one, and we might actually see that fall down. So something to pay attention to with Microsoft. It was not able to curl back up on this 2-hour just yet, so we have to be a little hesitant. Now we're seeing flagging on the 30-minute. Maybe if we're going to see a bounce, we want to see a 30-minute divergence to see that bounce come in. The only thing with that is if we come down to this level right here, look at this. You see that head and shoulders that could form very, very soon, right as we break through this big wedge that Microsoft has been in for quite some time. So Microsoft giving you a lot of the signals that we used on Apple to find the big push back in October. So if you're, I think I had maybe 500 subscribers, and those people were like, holy crap, you called the bottom. All it was looking at the technicals of Apple, comparing it to other stocks, comparing it to the market, and saying, yeah, this is most likely going to be a huge run. Once we saw that confirmed, we go, hey, now we're going to probably use an all-time high narrative as a bait to get people into this market, and then they are going to rip it away, and that very well might be happening. Now we thought March would be wonky price action, and look at March. I mean, it's been trap city, right? It's been traps all over the place. Now this might be the final trap of 2024, and we may see lower price action throughout the month of April, and that's why we need those monthly, those weekly, and those daily expected moves that you're going to get on Sunday. To point out one more that's holding up a little bit better, but not looking the best from momentum perspective. We were looking at Google Live and just showing you how it has multiple point divergences. It has like 5 divergences down here on the MACD with this 30-minute on the RSI at the same time. And if this just rolls over, we could see that downward pressure. Maybe we actually see this break down. Maybe this is some kind of little head and shoulders up here, but you see how price is very tight. An explosive move is coming. So will that be up or will that be down? That's probably going to depend on tomorrow. So the daily here, what I'm paying attention to, is this going to set itself up as a lower high at this point? And it definitely could, right? It definitely can. We came up towards this gap fill, right? And then we see that just roll over. This is a very vertical move, so we could see some kind of patterns to get down over time. This hasn't digested really at all, so maybe it wants to at least retest the 20 with some kind of pullback before heading higher. We're open to all scenarios, but as of right now, it looks like there is possibly a crash, maybe in the form of a bear market joining us into April. But we want to make sure that volatility is able to come back into this market, and it definitely is at this point, right? We've seen these little spikes. That's giving us the traps of March, and we've been doing really good with that. We've been trading like water. So if this MACD on the daily starts to curl up, look how close it is to positive territory. That's when these big spikes can happen. Now we're starting to coil up. The stock market looks even higher. It looks even more weak from a momentum perspective. We could see a big boom out of volatility soon. I just wanted to show you guys the weekly before we go into a 2-hour and show you what we're paying attention to. The weekly, yes, it's turning down. It's still in negative territory, but I just wanted to show you how tight the Bollinger Bands are. The Bollinger Bands haven't been this tight since like 2008, since before the housing crisis. This actually remained tight for a little bit, for a few weeks, going on to about, I think it was about 6 weeks. It remained tight like this, and then we saw it explode. So we could see that bullishness continue. We could keep curling up on those 2 hours and stuff for a few weeks here, but this is telling you that volatility is here. Volatility is going to be here. Actually, if this is telling you volatility is not there, this is telling you fear is not here right now. And that's exactly when you want to start to, hedge for yourself. You want to be like, if nobody is scared that something bad is going to happen, what if it does? You're going to see a big reaction from volatility. Okay, so 2 hour is what we're paying attention to. And we were notifying you about this during the live video this morning. Hey, we're seeing a possible double top on the SPY, and at the same time, we might be seeing a double bottom out of the VIX, okay? And that's really the signals you want to pay attention to with the VIX. I like using technicals on the VIX, but they don't always get it right. But when they are at the same time as the VIX, they usually have something to say, and this is telling you, boom, I have a big divergence, one little red bar to give you that on the MACD, and then we see that divergence here on the RSI right by the center line. So we could see volatility come in as soon as Monday, which makes me a little worried going into tomorrow, right? Going into tomorrow, so show up live so we can watch that together. The reason I'm really worried though is because of TLT. TLT really starting to break to the upside, and we're seeing those yields start to push down. So the bond market really saying, hey, those yields need to come down. Now, are they saying that to say this market needs to go higher, right? We need the yields to come down because we are bullish at this point? Or is this people running to safety? Or is this the bond market just saying, hey, yeah, we need to bring these rates down fast because something in the market is very sick, and something in the economy is very sick, and I'm going to guess it's a banking crisis, and we could see that flight to safety, which pulls down those yields, which actually is a sign that we're going to see some kind of sell-off, some kind of deflationary event, such as a recession, even something greater like a depression. So at this point, I do believe it will still be a bear market because we're dependent on data according to the Fed, but as the TLT starts to rip higher and those yields start to drop off, we could be seeing a reason for these to go up would most likely be that there is some kind of crisis that we're about to find out what exactly that is. The main takeaway here is stocks really do not look good going into tomorrow, so join me live at 9:30 a.m. Central Time so that we can go over PCE and take a look while Jerome Powell is talking. We're going to listen to that. But tomorrow could be a very big day. It looks like volatility is bottled up and ready to explode while stocks are showing you potential double tops, a lot of divergences confirming, and Microsoft showing you the exact same signal that we saw in October to see Apple see a huge move up. We're now seeing that in Microsoft move to the downside. So pay attention to that signal because it is a very good one. A triple divergence on the MACD is something you really want to pay attention to. So be very careful out there. Thank you guys so much for watching. Join me live tomorrow. Make sure if you are interested in learning about this stuff, it is $100 for the next couple of days. Okay, so go snag that while you still can. Join me live tomorrow and we'll talk about that course if you have any questions. And also if you want the weekly ranges, they are very useful in a bear market and they're part of the strategy you get in the course. So very, very cool. Go down, click everything. You guys are great. You're always like and subscribe and I really appreciate it. I hope you have a great night tonight and I will see you guys tomorrow live. Peace.